I want to acknowledge my other board members who are here tonight. We have Nate and Paige Rand. Linda Vanderhoven, who's the treasurer, so she's the money lady, thank God I'm not. And we have Kate Geiger, who's the secretary, who does all the things that, again, I don't want to do because she's great. I want to thank everyone for coming out. This exceeded my expectations. I'm just very happy and very honored. Thank you very much. We have a sellout at a CPAC event. Okay, 8 months ago, I met the fellow board members. I had never met them before, and it's kind of intimidating. You're just told you want to run the Hingham CPAC. Okay, here's who you're running it with. Go. About 10 minutes we were talking with each other and realized we have a lot in common. Our kids might have different diagnoses, different ages, but we all... Do you want to kill one like this? Because I don't do karaoke with all Oh, okay, thank you. Also, I'm like... Okay, let me regroup. So we kind of thought right away we'd like to focus on some social and emotional health for our kids. We all agreed our kids needed it, and honestly, as a parent with special need kids, it would be nice to have a room full of parents who are saying, yeah, I get it. I know what you're talking about, and teachers and support and staff and administration. So when we started our freshman year of CPAC and we said we were going to have the year of friendship, I'm really, really honored that everyone is here tonight, and I think our friendship is growing. I'd like to thank people from the school administration. I look around, I see the room full of people from all different organizations that work in the special needs community. We have the YMCA represented tonight. Inclusion program, thank you. Yep. Why? We have HEC, who is really one of our new partners, and we're proud to partner with them to bring Nadja Riley in April. You'll see you have your little take-home handouts. That'll be coming in April. I don't want to forget Chorus is here tonight, so we have Chorus from Situate. We have friends from CPAC and obviously staff. So it's amazing when you look out in our community how much support we do have. I just want to, take that in because it can be overwhelming at times. And I think one thing to remember, and I like to remember this myself, is we have a voice and you have to use it. Don't be shy. Don't get run down. You just have to keep fighting. And you guys have sent me a lot of great quotes. If you notice on your candles, there's different music quotes from different songs. And people sent me when I said, do you have a battle cry? Do you have a song that comes to mind before your IEP meetings? Or something like that, before seeing the doctors who look at you like your children just had bad behaviors and they don't understand it. So that was all sent in. If you read the quotes, think about it, and does it ring true to you? I just want to, again, thank you all. Remember, use your voice, whether it be voting, whether it be helping other people in the community. Don't be shy. CPAC is always here for you. We are always looking for new members, new board members, and I just want to thank you all very much for coming out. And now, without further ado, unless they snuck out, I'd like to hand the mic over to the real pros, the Shadow Sisters.
What pros? We have one microphone, we're sisters, and we shared a childhood bedroom, so don't worry, we've got it covered.
I tend to be the louder sister.
Good. Pull away.
We're just gonna.
But by the way, we asked Linda here, who's carrying the raffle jar, we want to check her imperfection to see if the cheating was on it. But apparently Linda just chases shiny things. So if Linda gets distracted, we'll call the number.
Anyone here have good vision?
Okay, I feel like Don Pardo. 525-2823. It's entirely fine. I'm blind as a bat. Would you just verify that? 525-2823.
So this is a sellout crowd? You mean all of you here, you found nothing better to do than come out here? So much pressure on us.
Thank you so much. We are so honored to be here.
It is. This is when we were here, what was it? Was it 2 years or 3 years ago? It was a blast. It was an absolute blast. And the bar really had nothing to do with it, honestly. But we are honored and thank Diane and the committee and the CPAC
And
for bringing
we
us
speak
back.
at a lot of CPACs, and so to have this turnout is such a credit for you. I mean, when we first started speaking, we used to ask our parents, they used to come to all our talks, and we made them sit separately because there was nobody there. So Hingham CPAC, you are the model. I am going to tell all CPACs to contact you. This is amazing. People drinking and listening to us. What can we say?
And we sound so much better after a few days.
We actually have a little contract with the bartender. We told him to ply you all with alcohol. He met us and he said, "No problem, I understand."
We do have the privilege of being able to travel all over the country, but I got to tell you, it is very comforting to be speaking in your own backyard, where you can say things like the bar, or you can. It's okay to say you love the Patriots, and you're not going to be attacked, right? So,
yeah, no, we are thrilled to be here. So, I don't know how many of you here are raising children with special needs. Okay, so we have a good population, and how many of you here don't have children with special needs? That's awesome. This is great. Thank you all who don't have children with special needs for coming out tonight.
how many of you here just to get the hell out of the house and you heard there was a bar here? Okay, here we go.
Well, the last time we were here, we spoke about our Movement of Imperfection, and we shared some of our personal, heartwarming stories. We actually had some people cry. That was when we started. But anyway, tonight we want to kind of share some of our insights that we've gathered. We really travel all around the country, as far as Weymouth, Situate, Kingston. We travel all around the country, and we have a Facebook community that we're going to talk a lot about, but a Facebook community that has united people from all over the world. And one of the things that we have found is we have the blessing to be able to learn from people all over the world. And one of the best parts of it is that we can share it with you tonight. And so we are going to share the 7 1/8 habits of highly imperfect parents.
And those of you, if you have an imperfection such as myself, if you're math challenged, don't worry, we're not going to get into fractions or anything like that. Don't let that scare you.
I have to tell you, I love this whole idea of wearing our imperfections. Does anyone else like that? I mean, it was just really fun to walk around and see the imperfections, but I could see some trouble brewing. At one point, I saw lack of patience, talking with talks too much. And I thought, oh my God, a brawl is going to break out right here. And how many of you here tonight have read the tags? Have you walked around and read that? I encourage you all to do that. But how many of you here have read those tags and say, oh, I have that, and I have that, and I have that? That's us.
And Mindy, I went to get us water because I was, when you talk, you get very dry. And I started to pour, and Mindy, who is an overcommitter, where's Mindy? The overcommitter started to pour the water for me. Like, he's overcommitting herself again. Oh.
So thank you all for coming tonight. We're thrilled to be back. It's not often that we get invited back. And the last time we were here, you have the slide advancer?
Yes, I do.
The last time we were here, there was quite a crowd. We were really excited, and then we came in and saw that it was because of the bar. Because how many of you here in this room just need to get the hell out of the house? Come on, we're all about honesty. Seriously. It is. It's like, and I bet some of you, how many of you here told your spouses or your partners, you said, I really have to go to this important CPAC.
For the children. For the children, right?
I personally told my husband that this was a one-week conference and I'm currently in Seattle. So thank Thank you, and we're delighted. We honestly have not seen such an incredible crowd that was just so fun, and to see it happen again is amazing. But it does kind of look like that in the right light if you squint your eyes. But
Yeah,
anyway.
and we should ask you too, like, what is the time change here in Hingham? 'Cause we're not, that's another one of my imperfections I forgot to list. We're not good at calculating time changes.
So now we would like to take you through the 7 and 1/8 habits of imperfect people. But we should also tell you, how many of you here have heard of us? I know.
And you came anyway?
Well, we're actual sisters. We joked about that the last time we were here. We're sisters. We're biological sisters. We're not nuns. We get that a lot, but those of you who saw us at the bar probably debunked that myth. But we're sisters. Patty's significantly older. You probably think that. You know, you think by the height, but no, water. Anyway, we're sisters, and we have actually written 3 books. Okay. No, before you get really
Don't be impressed.
because they're all kind of the same. The first book we wrote back in 2006, there's Patty showing it to some locals. They were actually in Montana. We self-published.
The only men that have ever listened to me.
They were dummies. But we were 2 parents raising children with disabilities. My daughter Katie, at the time, was diagnosed with Asperger's syndrome. And back then, you know, when she was first diagnosed, we had really never heard of it. I remember telling my husband, you know, she's got this thing called Asperger's. We couldn't even say it. He said, she's got what? Asper cream syndrome. But she was really struggling socially. We would never get invited to birthday parties. It was awful. She just stuck out like a sore thumb. We were really struggling. The school didn't understand her. In fact, when I brought in the Asperger's diagnosis, and a lot of you, those of you who have children that are younger, probably will be shocked when I tell you that they said, what is that? The teachers, I had never heard of it. Now today, I'm sure all your school systems are very, very versed in Asperger's syndrome. So we were really struggling.
My daughter Jennifer, what brought me on this path was my daughter Jennifer, who is now 22, at the age of 11 was diagnosed with bipolar disorder. And, you know, that many years ago, oh gosh, we're going back like 20 years ago now, there was no information available for children. And, you know, I think what a lot of us do is you go, like, how do you find information? And, you know, you go to the internet, and 20 years ago, there was no information for children. And it's like, where do you go? Where do you go? And around the same time, my niece was diagnosed. So we were 2 moms in a lot of pain. We were very lucky in that we had each other. We had a very supportive family. But yet, when you go back home in your own community, it can be very, very isolated.
You know, it was funny because our first instinct, and I know, by the way, we have a lot of women here tonight, so how many single women came here to meet men? Because you picked the wrong place.
Kind of nice my wine glass shows up.
Well, you know, our first instinct, how many of you here, when, you know, we all go through, we're going to talk a little bit about some of the emotions we go through, but when our children are diagnosed, we instantly, or anything goes wrong with our children, as mothers, our first instinct is to say, is to feel guilty and say, it's our husband's fault. But Patty and I, when we compared notes, we're like, God, it's us. And actually, my friend Megan, who so eloquently put it, apparently there was no lifeguard at your gene pool. But that just made us laugh because, you know, you know, we'll talk about this a little bit later, but we picked up books, we read about our kids' disabilities, and it was so depressing, and we felt like people didn't understand our kids. Our kids did not meet the model of perfection. And you don't have to have a kid with a disability to experience that. I have met so many people whose kids are average. Some of us would shoot for average. Some people whose kids are just average. They're not stars, and they're struggling to find their kid's place. Or maybe we have a kid that has no learning issue whatsoever, but maybe dad thought he was going to play sports. And you know what? He likes theater and music. And so one of the things that we have learned through our experiences is how to let go of those parental expectations and love the reality. And that's what we're going to teach you tonight. If not, you know,
You might
And
as
we
well.
have failed. Get a drink.
So anyway, so we wrote our book. We were struggling. We self-published it. We gave it to a few people that we knew and said, hey, and they were like, oh my God, you're saying the things we're so afraid to say. You say shut up. Quite honestly, our mother did not like that phrase. But then as she saw that we were making money off the name, ooh, shut up! I know, shut up! Did I tell you to shut up? But anyway, we decided to self-publish it. And then one day we were speaking at an organization, and we were approached by a publisher, and who had felt what we felt. And we ended up having our book picked up by a major publisher. So that was book 2. So don't think we're amazing.
That would be
But we did read
this book.
the book that we're selling tonight. But you know, we did rewrite it in our credit. And then we got the call of all calls. We got a call from a publisher in Korea.
I don't know if any of you know anything about...
Now, we may not look that bright, but we have a Korean book.
Yeah. I don't know if any of you know anything about the publishing industry, but it takes a long time for a book to get published. Like anywhere between 12 to 18 months or even longer. And so our publisher said that, you know, they want to publish your book in Korea. I'm like, well, that's really cool. So anyway, what had happened was they put us in touch with their publisher, and we would exchange emails back and forth. And so they, you know, they're, and I don't know if the editor, I don't know if it was a male or a female, couldn't tell by the name, but I would correspond with them. And
In English. Because her Korean's a little rusty.
Well, what I thought I was really cool because I'd go through Google Translate and just kind of do it back. Like,
She probably
look at me,
insulted them.
you know.
In fact, I think it was North Korea originally, and they liked us.
So one of the questions they said was, do you have a photo? And darn, I don't have a slide of it, but do you have a photo we can use? And so we had professional headshots taken. We asked them to please use Photoshop and take off 20, 30 pounds. But anyway, so they asked, so I sent them the professional headshots, and then I sent them just some goofy photos, And so when the books, fast forward, a year and a half later, and this box arrives at my house. And I open it up, and there's 4 books of this book. And of course it's in, I don't know what it's like, this bizarro cover that has, you can't see it in this, but it has a picture of a wolf and a sheep. And I'm like, what is this? I didn't order
We have
this.
no idea what it means. But
No idea.
Wow, we look
None.
skinny in the picture.
I had no idea. And the only reason why I knew it was our book is when I opened the inside flap, it had 2 pictures of us, a picture of us in our Snuggies.
Imperfection, I break into shows.
Oh,
I'm so sorry.
no, that's all right. Okay.
For those who are hearing impaired, we'll share the mic. We shared a childhood bedroom. That didn't work out so well, but anyway. So 3 books, 2 sisters, 7 and 1/8. I don't remember. We're not good with fractions. That's one of her imperfections. But we're going to share with you the 7 1/8 habits of raising kids with disabilities. Habit number 1. Come out of your messy closets, okay? Admit, we live in a society, we talked about this last time we were here, we live in a society that's so obsessed with being perfect, right? We have to have the perfect body, the perfect kids, the perfect, spouse. Anyone here have that? Because we're like 3. And so we're afraid to admit, and so when our kids get diagnosed, we're afraid to admit that they have something that they're struggling with. Or maybe even if our kids don't diagnose, we're afraid to even admit that our kids are just average. And our first lesson, and not that we got there on our own thinking, it was kind of our kids that made us come out of our messy closet. I know my daughter Katie, I enrolled her in soccer. I was a great athlete, and I thought, okay, she's going to play sports just like I did. I put her in soccer. They put her in the soccer net, and she was trying to catch butterflies. And all the parents were looking at me, and then at one point, she was
she was going down the soccer field, and she wouldn't even touch the ball. She was like dodgeball. She'd avoid it. And so early into the season, I adopted a incentive program. I told Katie, every time you touch the ball, Mommy will pay you a quarter. She made 75 cents the entire season, which she got on a technicality. She was sitting on the sidelines eating orange slices, and someone kicked the ball into her. And she said, Mom, you owe me 75 cents. But she stood out like a sore thumb, and I remember sitting there thinking every parent was looking at my kid. My kid was not fitting in, and I remember just being so ashamed and trying to make excuses. And then, you know, one of the things I've learned is to just come out and say, she's not perfect. She has something a little wrong with it. Because I felt like if I didn't say that, people were talking about her behind her back anyway. So I might as well start talking about her to help educate them. And I'm going to give the microphone to my sister because she looks like she wants to kill me.
No, which is, you know, which brings us to why we had you all tell us about your imperfections. Is it not liberating to find other, who here is a procrastinator? Excellent, I'll talk to you all later. But isn't it so liberating to find people that aren't perfect? And for any of you in this room who are longing for the perfect family, right here, you can grow your perfect family. It's that simple. So, yes, you just add water. Exactly.
But you know, it helps to talk about when we were kids. We had a child on our street that she used to get picked up in the van, and we just never really knew much about this young girl. And I remember asking my mother about it, like, what's up with her? Don't ask about her. You know. And our mother was a very kind-hearted person. I mean, she raised us. Hello. But our mother used to say, shh, don't talk about her. That sweet thing is a little slow. And you know, that's the way we grew up, is that we weren't allowed to talk about kids with disabilities. They were kind of hidden away. And I know in a lot of countries, kids with disabilities aren't even seen. I mean, we've come very far here in America. But we believe that if we don't talk about our kids, nobody's ever going to understand them. And you know, what's really amazing to us is that kids are when we were in school, we didn't really see kids with disabilities. They were kind of thrown in a you know, we're old, but they were kind of thrown in a resource room where nobody saw them. And what's so cool about our children is they're exposed to kids, whether you have a kid with a disability or not, they're exposed to kids with all different types of disabilities, which is amazing. So we say, you know what, don't feel, whether you're a parent or whether you're someone who feels like you have to admit that everything's always perfect. You don't have to. It's way more fun to admit that life isn't perfect. Look at you all proudly wearing your labels. This one over here, she swears too much. Dang. So again,
Anyone?
what is your imperfection?
Shout it out. Anyone?
Oh, they're all perfect. What's that?
Terrible names.
Terrible names.
Terrible.
Me too.
I'm sorry, what was your
Thank you,
name?
Sally. Oh, right, Diane. Right.
Anyone else? What do we
Who's
got?
anxious? Anyone anxious?
All of my control freaks in the room. You want to get up here? You want to get up here, don't you?
Who's always late? Oh, always late. Okay.
It's a little of the game, but I feel so comfortable with you all. I feel so comfortable that I'm going to share my imperfection because you all seem so warm and kind. Mine says that I tend to put people to sleep when I speak. So thank you all. I want you all to proudly share your imperfections. It is a great, isn't it a great little icebreaker? Yeah. Oh, who you kidding? The wine's a great icebreaker. So habit number 1. Habit number 2. Ride the imperfect wave. As you can see, my sister handling this wave right here.
Oh, yes.
But you know, one of the things that I did when my daughter was diagnosed, I tried to fight it. I tried to fight that's not true. Like my daughter's fine. She's gonna outgrow it. They're wrong. They're wrong. My daughter's perfect. Hello, look at her mother. That should have been a clue right there that something wasn't right. But we tend to force, as I mentioned, I try to force my daughter into my world of sports, and tried to, I wasn't really listening to her. And one of the things that I've learned most is to ride the wave, is to go into her world, to not force her into a world that she doesn't feel right in. And one of the best examples of that involved something that helped me the most. And a lot of parents, it's somewhat controversial to some special parents, but it was the poem Welcome to Holland. Are you all familiar with Welcome to Holland? Yep. You may want to, actually, we have it in our book, which is available for sale. Table number 5. No, but Welcome to Holland was written by this lovely, lovely woman named Emily Pearl Kingsley, and Patty and I have the privilege of meeting Emily. We all speak on the same cruise ship for special needs families. And Emily penned this poem, this essay actually, called Welcome to Holland, when her son Jason was diagnosed, was born with Down syndrome. And she likened having a child to being on a trip in Italy. And your whole life you've heard people go to Italy, and your whole life you've dreamed about your opportunity to go there. So finally you decide, you get all the guidebooks, you're all ready to go to Italy, and you get on the plane, and you're all excited, and the pilot says, "Welcome to Holland." We landed in Holland. And you say, "Holland? I'm not supposed to go to Holland. I'm supposed to be in Italy. Italy has the Michelangelos. That's where I'm supposed to be." And the pilot says, "No, you're in Holland, and that's where you must stay." And as a parent, you never get over the fact, sometimes never get over the fact that you were supposed to be in Holland. And that grief of Italy, that grief of not being in Italy is a very real and hard thing. But then you look around in Holland, and you see that Holland has tulips, and Holland has windmills. And you realize it's not so bad in Holland. And you meet tour guides and people you never thought you would meet. But the loss of going to Italy is something that you'll live with for the rest of your life. And that's sort of the journey that we so share as parents with kids with disabilities, is that we have an expectation. Many of us, even if you don't have a child with a disability, you have an expectation of where your life is supposed to go. And so one of the things that we have to learn and adjust to as parents is, okay, that's not the plan. We've got to throw that out and go where we're supposed to go. I think Patty wants the microphone.
I was just going to add a little footnote to Emily, our friend, dear friend, Emily Kingsley, who wrote Welcome to Holland. She actually back, 45 years ago, Emily applied for a position at Sesame Street. She wanted to be a producer. Sesame Street wasn't hiring any producers, but they were looking for writers. And so Emily submitted a writing sample. They hired her as a writer. And Emily, one of the things that she observed was Sesame Street doesn't have any characters with disabilities. So it was Emily's idea, Emily's vision to introduce characters with disabilities to Sesame Street. And that was before she had her son. So then she had her son, and that was when she wrote Welcome to Holland. The other thing that Emily shared with us is, as Gina mentioned, we've had the honor and the privilege, like how many people get jobs like we do, that we get to speak on a cruise ship. And Emily shared with us this past October, last October, a movie that was written about her life story. And back that, like, we're so much more accepting as a society about people with disabilities, but way back then we weren't very nice at all. And Emily was in the hospital. She gave birth to her son Jason, and the doctor was like, they didn't show her new baby right away. They wanted to keep it from her. And she said, "Well, when can I hold my baby?" And the doctor says, "Well, there's a problem." And they used words like, "He's a mongoloid." And she's saying things like, "But I want to see him." And they said, "Well, your best thing is tell people that he died in childbirth. I mean, can you imagine? Can you imagine that? So this was the story, but Emily defied his advice. The doctor was clearly bent out of shape, and one of the nurses was, said to Emily, like, don't listen to them. And Emily worked with this child, and one day she discovers he's capable of learning. So her son Jason, who's now 40-something, he lives with two other individuals with Down syndrome. And these three guys, they call them the Three Musketeers. In fact, on our cruise, it was Halloween, and they were all dressed like the Three Musketeers. They all live together. And, they all have jobs. They're all independent. They have some supports that come in. But, yeah, she defied them.
Of course, when we knew Emily worked at Sesame Street, I'm like, so, do you know Grover? I have had a crush on him. And tell me about Ernie and Bert. But I would encourage you to read that essay, Welcome to Holland, because I think it so eloquently describes what we feel as parents.
Which brings us to
habit number 3. Don't believe everything you read. One of the things that we've noticed is people love to brag about their perfect lives, And what greater medium to brag about your perfect life than Facebook, right? Because people only see a glimpse. I remember when I was a kid, if I had a good test, my mother would put it on the Frigidaire refrigerator, right? But today, Facebook is the new Frigidaire. Because parents are posting kids' report cards on, do you notice that? They're posting their report cards, they're posting their college acceptance. Yeah, the trips they're taking. And Patty and I posted that we were in Hingham tonight. Everybody's jealous because you're the best CPAC ever. But honestly, it's like, and if you're reading that, or around holidays, people say to us, we spoofed on this in our book, but they get those holiday newsletters. Anyone here send those holiday newsletters? Between saving the whales and running marathons. But anyway, any of us, and one of the things we like to say is any of us, those of us who are raising kids with disabilities, will pretend we're living a perfect life. Like, I have a friend that tells everybody she lives in a gated community. She has 2 little boys with autism and gates all over. And I have another friend that tells everybody her money's invested in pharmaceuticals. What do you think that means? We have another friend that tells everybody she's seeing a handsome doctor. She's a good-looking therapist. So don't believe everything you read. So Patty and I, we were cracking up. We said, how can we show this? So we Googled ridiculous headlines, and we got statistics show that teen pregnancy drops off significantly after age 25. Don't believe everything you read.
habit number 4, be an optimist. I think that sometimes, I don't know, any of you have children that have public meltdowns?
Or sisters that have public meltdowns?
It can be really embarrassing, right? Really embarrassing. I remember one day my daughter was having a huge meltdown when I took her to get a haircut, and I know that everybody in the shop was looking at me like, your kid is such a brat, and sometimes what I would do was, if I was in a snarky mood, I thought, I'm going to have a little fun with this. And I remember one day she was having a total meltdown at the Cape Cod Mall, and everybody was looking at me. And I thought, I'm going to look on the bright side of things. She's having a meltdown. Everyone's staring at me like I am the worst mother on the planet. So everyone's staring at her, and all of a sudden I start clapping. And I said, she's rehearsing for a play. Isn't she good? Isn't she good, everyone?
It's true about being an optimist, and this relates to our last habit about don't believe everything you read. I know, how many of you, when your children were first diagnosed, you read books, or you went to the internet and you diagnosed WebMD? God, I've had more illnesses on WebMD. I'm a medical miracle, right? But anyway, I Googled Asperger's and I read books on Asperger's and every book was so depressing. I remember saying to my husband, she's going to be pregnant by 6, drug addicted by 8, in prison by 10. He said, you're going to be divorced by 35. But everything is so negative. And I grew up being very negative. I was a huge Red Sox fan in the 70s and 80s. So I think that explains it. But anyway, I used to be a glasses empty kind of girl. And now I'm a glasses full, and I love when my wine glass is full. But seriously, I was telling a very wonderful, beautiful young mom here tonight who has a child that was diagnosed similar to what my child was diagnosed with years ago. And one of the greatest parts of being older, besides, you know, the wrinkles, the hot flashes, you know, all that glamour stuff, beside that is I have the benefit of wisdom and experience. And one thing, how many of you here have children that are younger? Like, you know, okay. So I was talking to this lovely mom, and I remember we did our first talk with our first book, and Katie, you know, must have been more older than 6th, 7th grade. And some woman said, yeah, I know everybody's laughing at your talk, but I can't laugh, she said, because what's the future hold? I don't know what the future holds. And you can't tell me. And I don't think any of us, whether you have a kid here with a disability or not, none of us know what the future holds. But she said, I want to know what my child's life's going to be like later on. And when Katie was younger, I was that pessimist that thought she would never do this, never do that. And I was telling this young mom who has the imperfection of being forgetful, so she probably won't remember. But I was telling this mom tonight that he is going to grow and mature in ways that amaze you. And I said, people told me that and I didn't believe it. And one of the things that my daughter has taught me is to never doubt her. And from the moment she was diagnosed, any expert I brought her to, all they would do was tell me the things she couldn't do. They told me she would never tie her shoes. She tied her shoes. They told me she would never ride her bike. She rode her bike. They told me she would never graduate high school. She graduated high school. In fact, she had to give a speech at her graduation. She graduated from a very small special needs school. And she wrote her speech. I didn't know what she was going to say. And she just said, Mom, would it be okay to say suck it? And the teachers who didn't believe in me. They said she would never drive a car. She's driving a car. She has her license. They said she would never go to college. She's in her 3rd year in college. They said she would never live away in college. She's in her 3rd year at Westfield State. They said she would could never work in retail. It was too busy. She works at Macy's. So, you know, one thing I've learned from my children is don't fall into the pessimism. When you read those books, when you hear those experts, they don't know your child. Only you know your child. Okay, I'll shut up now. And again, having the snarky responses, like I don't know if any of you have children that are in their senior year of high school, but you get the, where'd your child get accepted to? Like everybody automatically assumes. And that's what, you know, I experienced with my son. My son, you talk about school calls. I mean, my son had a rap sheet as long as my arm when it comes to school calls. But, you know, it was senior year, it was all, where's he going? Where's he going? You know, I'm like, my son got accepted to the jail diversion program. To his credit, he's at Middlesex. He's in his 2nd semester at Middlesex, and you know what? He's thriving. He's actually thriving. A lot of his friends who went away, that got into schools, weren't doing so well because they partied a lot. And my son, you know, he got rejected at every single school except for Middlesex. And honest to God, when he got rejected, I was like, because he wasn't ready. He didn't have the maturity. So he's at Middlesex, and he sent me a text today with a picture. He actually made the dean's list. And my sister's too humble to admit this, but he still parties too.
Well, yes. The difference is he hasn't gotten caught lately.
Which brings us,
To a laugh break.
all right, we talked about those crazy headlines. Stabbing disrupts class for anger management. Now that's funny.
Actually, several years ago, I belonged to a bipolar parent support group. And one of the mom who ran the support group said that her daughter had been sent away, and the daughter was they had sent her to an anger management class, and she said, "Mom," she said, "I met someone." And the mother's like, "Oh, that's lovely, dear." And she said, "I really like him, but he has a temper."
I should tell you, I noticed none of you are taking notes, especially those who are easily distracted. There will be a pop quiz on that. Which brings us to habit number 5, and I think Patty and I have mastered this one. Don't take life too seriously. I mean, life, life's hard, right? It's hard for any of us. Whether you have maybe if you have a kid with a disability that's struggling, it's a little bit harder, but everybody has something that they're struggling with. I remember Patty sharing a story with us about a friend who had a stroke. And I'll let you tell it because you don't have your microphone.
Yes, I had a friend of a friend who had a stroke, and she was young. She was like in her 30s, and so she was the youngest daughter, and she had like 6 brothers, and so they bring her in, and the doctor's going to give her the news, and the family, she's looking at them, and they're all looking very, very grim, and the doctor, who was very, very cold, looks at her, and he said, "You're going to die." And she looks at, her parents and all of her brothers, and they all look so sad. And she looks at the doctor and she said, "Well, so are you."
It is true, though. I mean, laughter, we talked about this. How many of you here were here the last time we spoke? And you came back?
And you came back?
Notice a very small crowd. I think it was too much for them. But it was the bar, wasn't it? But one of the things we talked about when we were here last time is, people have said to us, can you take something as serious as finding out your child has a disability and laugh about it? And the answer is, not at first. When your child's first diagnosed with a disability, it's devastating. I mean, experts have likened it to the mourning process. They said you actually go through the stages of grief. And so we did go through those stages, but then at some point you look around and you just say, boy, my life is so much different than everybody else's. And I remember one day my husband actually was the one who introduced laughter to me, and he was watching a father on the street put his soccer balls in the car going to soccer, and he's like, this is so funny. He's like, he's taking his kids to Saturday morning soccer, I'm taking my girls to therapy. And it is true, and it's like we look at, and so I remember, we really got to test our theory about, can you really use laughter in a difficult time? And, we've had difficult times with our children, but our most difficult time happened 5 years ago, just about 5 years ago, when we lost our beloved mother. And our mother was a huge part. I had the privilege of meeting a lovely grandma today whose her imperfection is that she's too short. I think she's perfect the way she is. But we were talking about mothers and how, a lot of us here, how many of you here have a mother that's just very involved in your child's life and in your life? And we had that. We grew up in a very tight-knit Italian family. Our mother was there for everything in our life. She referred to Patty as the daughter who moved away. Patty lived 35 minutes north of her.
With traffic.
So when we lost our mom, it was rather unexpected. She had had surgery, and she had made it through surgery, but then died in the ICU. And our mother and father were married for 53 years, and they were very much in love. And so when she passed away, our father was devastated, and it came time to make the funeral arrangements. And our dad was too distraught to go to the funeral home. And I don't know how many of you here have gone to a funeral home to make arrangements. So you know what I mean when I say that it's like a used car lot. Like if you've gone to buy a casket, they're literally like in a showroom, right? So our dad was too distraught to go, so he gave my sister, and we have a brother in between us and I, his checkbook. And he said, you go pick everything out. And our dad grew up during the Depression, so he's always valued money. And he saved hard. And so we went into the showroom, and I was immediately drawn to this beautiful mahogany casket. I swore I heard the choirs in heaven sing. And I went up to it, and I touched it, and the funeral director comes over to me, and she's like, it's beautiful, isn't it? I said, yes, it is. And then she looks at me, and she says, what's it going to take for me to put your mother? It just went well with that used car. I said, how much is it? She said, oh, it's on sale. It's only $15,000. I said, you know the problem with this casket? If I buy it, I got to buy 3 more because my father's going to kill us. And this one loved every casket we saw. Ooh, I like that one. I'm like, Patty, get in. I want to try this one.
Oh, come on, they all look so comfortable. Who didn't want to go in and give it a test drive? But our mother was so involved in everything we did, and every, any book signing that we had, she would be there. And it was actually kind of embarrassing because she'd be lurking around in the background, and she'd come up to us and say, hey, I put your books over there where Oprah's book club is. You can't be doing that. But our mother was our greatest salesperson, and perhaps her greatest feat as our top salesperson was one day she called both of us up, and she was very excited because she had received a call from a telemarketer, and she was bragging to us that not only did she not buy the windows that telemarketer was selling, but she managed to sell her 2 books. Time for
Another laugh break. Man kills himself and runs away. Don't believe everything you read. Habit number 6, find your game. One of the most...
Excuse me. Little disclaimer. We're not referring to MS-13 or anything.
But if someone said to me, your daughter's doing well, someone said to my sister, your daughter's well, what is the thing that got you through the most difficult times? And I would tell you, the thing that got me through the most difficult time was finding others who got it. Because there are 2 people in this world. There are people who get it, and there are people who don't get it. And I chose to surround myself with people who got it. Mainly my sister, because I couldn't shake her. But, how many of you here, for example, where are my procrastinators?
They'll later.
All right, you guys are going to get together later. At some point. I don't know when, but you're meant to be together. But support, it's sort of, one of the things we found is like, my problem with this whole perfection thing, other than the fact that I'm nowhere near it, achieving it, is that when you meet people, it's sort of surfacey, like what kind of house do you live in? What kind of car? And in our imperfect world, one of the best things about our imperfect world is we can't do that. We're like, what's your kid's disability? I remember one time, and there's a little jealousy in our community, I'm not going to lie. I remember one mother's like, yeah, I just got a neuropsych, my child was diagnosed with dyslexia. I'm like, damn, we wanted that. You're so lucky. Of course, then you always get the bragging parents in the special needs group. Well, my child's IQ is 140. But find your gang, find people who surround yourself. And one of the greatest things about living in Massachusetts is that we have people nearby. This CPAC is just incredible. To have people here who have come here to participate in CPAC events and to connect with other CPAC parents, wonderful. But I want to give a huge round of applause to the parents who are here who don't have kids with disabilities, who have come here to learn about our kids, to support our kids. And it's not an us versus them. It's it's people educating each other and just learning more about each other. What do you want?
No, and to give the parents who do not have children with disabilities a lot of credit, several years ago we were speaking out in Westfield, and this mom came in, She walked in a few minutes late, and we were speaking, and at the end, when it came time for questions, she raised her hand and she said, well, I have a comment. She said, I walked in here because I thought I was coming to a college prep meeting. But she stayed and she asked very good questions. So she said this was really informative, which is really funny because I wish we spoke, I think it was in Rentham, and they had one of those marquees outside, and it said, college prep night, and then right under it, we have to take a picture of this, it said, shut up about your perfect kid. We've got to include that in our presentation. So, find your gig. So later, after we break, I want to see procrastinators talking. If you know, it could be later. I want to forgetful people write this down because I know you're going to forget. I want you to be, hanging out. Habit 6 1/3. Take care of your body. Okay, we obviously, looking at us, we don't do a great job. But what I mean by that is one of the things that we always say is, we're telling people, people say to us, we're not saying, I remember we were on a radio station, a TV station in Connecticut, and the producer came out, whoa, you're telling everybody to be imperfect? Don't you think that's a little scary? I'm like, no, we're not telling people, we're saying embrace your imperfections, but try to work with what you have. Be your imperfect, remember Oprah, be your best. Be your imperfect best. And so we try to be our imperfect. We try to make the most of it. I joined a gym. I belong to Planet Fitness. How many of you here belong to Planet Fitness? You have Planet Fitness. All right, do we not love this gym? It has a walk meter. I mean, my favorite thing about, and I have to say, in my defense, I had no idea that they had Pizza Mondays and Bagel Tuesdays. Right? Pizza Mondays, Bagel Tuesdays. I sprung for the extra $20 a month membership. I paid the extra $10 to get access to the massage chairs and the massage booth and the tanning booths. Right? So we have a suggestion box at Planet Fitness. So I noticed, I put in a suggestion. We should just get rid of the equipment and put in couches. This place is awesome. Now this was Bagel Tuesday?
Bagel Tuesday.
She's not even wearing like a workout outfit. She's just there for the bagels. You're gonna love it.
And you know what? My niece worked at Planet Fitness. She was an assistant manager. She said, Auntie, on Pizza Monday, people just come in and walk out with pizza. I'm like, that's my gym. So those of you who don't belong to Planet Fitness, go join now before they go bankrupt.
Time for another.
Lab break. Marijuana issue sent to a joint committee. Which brings us to habit number 7. Treat yourself. Just wrote a blog about this today. Those of you who have children with special needs, how many of you do things for yourself? How many of you here tonight, this was a huge undertaking to come here tonight. You had to move heaven and earth to come here. And for a little while you felt guilty. But then you got that car and you're like, I'm not going home. Oh, that was just me, sorry.
I remember several years ago, my daughter was going through such a bad time. And I thought, if I don't get the hell out of this house, I'm going to crack up. And so I called up my husband at the time, and I said, you need to come home, and you need to come home. No. So he came home, and I got in the car, and all I wanted to do was just walk the beach, like something that simple. And 3 kids, their little faces pressed up against the glass, watching me peel out of that driveway, and wondering, is she ever going to come back?
It is true. But parents are on our Facebook community, which I'm going to give us a shameless plug. Our Facebook community, if you leave tonight, please, if anything, join this community. It's wonderful. It's 850,000 people around the world. I know we've been through this, Weymouth, Situate, blah, blah, blah. Iraq, Pakistan, New Zealand, Australia. Huge. India is one of our top countries. I mean, it's just all around the world. Singapore, whatever. But one of the things we always say to parents, how do you take care of you? How do you make time for yourself? And some parents are very bold, very proud about how they care for themselves. Well, I go to the mailbox every day. They're like, buy yourself something new. You deserve a treat yourself. Get something fresh. Well, I bought deodorant. Our definition of self-care, you gotta take care of yourself. It's so hard. I remember reading Success book years ago. I was into Tony Robbins, I don't know if any of you read Tony Robbins' Success, but he said, put out your best. Why do we save our best china for holidays? Put out your best china. Every day of life is a holiday. So I do that now. I pull out my Chinette paper plates. Not the cheap ones with the little ridges. The real good ones, and I celebrate.
Habit 718. Show you're in perfect pride.
My kid in a wheelchair can roll over your honest truth.
One of my favorite bumper stickers that we created was, you see these, my honor student, this, that, how many, you see those, right? Well, we created one that said, my bipolar kid loves me and hates me. But any of you here, we were interviewed by 2020. I meant the local cable station. I tend to exaggerate. That's another one of my imperfections. I'll tell you some more. But he said to, great question Ben asked us. He said, are parents not supposed to brag about their kids? We're saying no. Every parent should be proud of their kids, but we are proud of our kids too. I actually had people say to me when my daughter was diagnosed, well, like, you're proud of her? Like, I'm so proud of my kids. And, we're saying everybody can brag about their kids. You can brag about your kids, but I'm going to brag about my kids. And as special parents, we brag about our kids for some different reasons. Like early on in our talk, we first started talking, a mother raised her hand. She said, today my child with autism told his first lie. Like, it's awesome. He's going to be pathological by the end of the year. You go, girl. But anyone who knows a child with autism knows that's a huge developmental milestone. We were out in Connecticut and a woman raised her hand. She said, she had a little British accent. And Patty, I'm sure you want to share it because she likes to do accents. She said, I have a story to tell. What is it? She said, my daughter used the F word in the proper context. Any of you want to share a brag? Some parents will say to us, on our Facebook page, we're like, okay, it's time for a brag alert. We have like a brag desk, this just into the brag desk. Someone said, the school didn't call me with bad news for 2 whole days. And all the special parents like, that's amazing. But of course, the inner pessimist is saying to me, did she check to make sure she paid her cell phone bill? Is there a dial tone on the house phone?
Time for another.
Okay, those of you who can't see, this is a wrestler and his head is near the buttocks of another wrestler. It says, Adam City Star smells title. Habit number 7 in 1 quarter. Anybody here in good math? Because I think fraction-wise we're all the same. Okay, are we off here? Habit 7 in 1/4. Because we couldn't do just the 7 habits. We're perfect. We have to do something different. But go easy on yourself. I've got to ask my special parents. How many of you here, when your child was first diagnosed, blamed yourself? Mindy, I should have known. Don't overcommit yourself. I did. I just swear, I'm like, it was the epidural. It was the simple wine I had. It was because I was mean to that boy in the resource room who asked me where from. I said, God, I apologize to him. What? What do you want? It was because I married an idiot. I'm glad I gave her the mic. That was fun. But it's like we're so hard on ourselves. We're never doing enough, right? Any of you here feel, any parent, whether you have a kid with a disability, you always feel like you should be doing more? I get these parents that, like, they go to the they go to the parent curriculum nights, you know, and they're like, I want to know if you're employing me at Orton Gillingham. You know, and I'm like, you know, my kid's reading, you know, I want to know, like, when's Taco Tuesday? You know? For parents who like sit there and do their homework with their kids, and like, once my daughter's gotten to special needs school, I'm like, you're on your own.
I remember going to an open house years ago, and you know, some parents, they want to use open house as their personal conferences. So they go up to the teachers afterwards. And, you know, and my friend and I were stuck behind this parent's like, do you have any extra credit homework that you can give to them? So we wait till they're done, like, yeah. So we go to him, I said, all right, the first sign that he does something wrong, just call me. Like, you know, I'm on it, just let me know.
Yeah, because Patty and I, we're the, there are two types of parents in this world. There are the, not my child. Any of those parents? Not my kid. Patty and I are the shoot first and ask questions. Right? We are. So like, what did they do now? I'm going to kill them. We automatically assume it's our kid that did something. There was this one mother that we met, and she was one of those former parents that thought her child could do no wrong, right? No wrong. So one day she gets a call from the school principal. Mrs. Johnson, your son Joseph wrote on the wall, the bathroom wall, in permanent marker. And she said, well, how do you know it was my Joey? The principal said, because he signed his name and put your phone number and address.
One of the things that my son got really good at was prefacing things for me. Like, I remember one day, it was a Friday afternoon, and I was on my way home from work, and, you know, it's like, you may be getting a call from the school. I said, oh, and what did we do this time? And he said, it wasn't illegal. Okay, that's good. And then, with 2 days left in the school year of his senior year, my son calls me and said, I just want you to know, you may be getting a call from, you know, Mrs. So-and-so at the school. Now, I had two daughters, like my older two kids, my two daughters, went through 4 years of high school. I only met, Andover High had, I think, 4 vice principals, one for each grade. I only met the ones that had the vice principal for their respective grades. With him, I met all 4. And so he tells me this, that, you know, and I said, what did you do now? And he said, well, I was kind of excited about graduation, and I got a little excited, and I threw an orange in the cafeteria at the wall. Like, really? 2 days left? So they gave me one day suspension in school. Like, you couldn't, the last week of school, you couldn't give that to me?
So, I mean, our point, and we do have one, to quote Ellen, is that to just, you know, let go. It's not your fault, and you're meant to be. And I know that's one of the things that helped us get through our struggles was, you know, just understanding that you are on this path, you're on this journey that you're supposed to be on, and you're going to meet people. And that's one of the, you know, that's, I think, probably the most exciting part of all of this, is that we have truly met people. Yes, we had expectations. Yes, I thought my daughter was going to be a star athlete, a good student. All the things that I thought she was going to be. And lo and behold, we're in this other world in Holland. And I have met people in Holland that I never would have met. I would not be in Hingham at the South Shore Country Club tonight if it weren't for my daughter. I would not have met some amazing people. I would not have the opportunity to stand in front of parents whose children are younger and say, there is hope. There is hope. And so, you know, this journey that we're on, we're meant to be on it. We didn't cause it. We're here because we're supposed to be here. And we're not going home tonight.
Which brings us to another
laugh break. Cemetery residents making a comeback.
Habit 7 3/4, let them fly. I think one of the most difficult things, and that is for a parent of any child, and then you factor in a kid with a disability, it becomes that much more difficult, you have to let them go. If they want to drive, you know, you have to take that leap of faith. This is my daughter Jennifer, and my older daughter gave her sister on Christmas she called it a gift. I'm like, what the hell are you doing? So she gave her a certificate to go skydiving, and that was Jen. And one of the things that Jen did was, one of the things that was absolutely, I would say, life-saving for her was running. Like, Jen would enter herself into running. She was a very good runner. And in 2013, Jen was a volunteer at the Boston Marathon. And she was texting me all day, just saying the atmosphere was like so much fun, and Mom, I'm gonna run this next year. It is so wonderful to be here. And that was around 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock that morning. And then when I was driving home that afternoon, it was around 3 o'clock, and my phone goes off, and there was a text from my daughter saying, Mom, turn on the news. 2 bombs just went off. I'm so scared. And I'm driving home and I'm in complete shock. And I'm thinking, what, you know, she doesn't know the city well. How the hell is she going to get out of there? How am I going to get to her? And thank God she was okay. She witnessed, you know, a lot of people just panicking. And I knew that the following year, I knew she was going to want to run that race, and there was nothing, even if I wanted to, that I couldn't stop her from wanting to run that race. And she's a very stubborn person, which is sometimes a good thing and a bad thing. But she was very tenacious in wanting to run that race, and she emailed every contact that she had, and Marty Walsh came through and sent her a number, and so she ran in 2014, and I had started a new job, and I got there just as she was finishing, so I didn't actually see her finish across the finish line. But in 2015 she also ran, and I was there, and I had my camera there, and I got video, and I was very excited to, like, oh, I actually got it, I got her, you know, crossing. And my older daughter, who was like a little bit beyond standing where I was, said, oh no, you have to see my video. And so the last marathon, it had rained that morning, and so the ground was wet. And so Jen goes over and she's crossing, and so my daughter and her friends are calling out to her, and she sees them, and she goes over and she stops, and she goes over to greet them, and she slips and she falls and gets up laughing. But if you see the video, it's like that was indicative of like her whole life story. She would fall and get right back up and go. So, I mean, I think that, you know, one of the things that I learned is, I remember when my daughter wanted to drive and she was still having these meltdowns, and I thought, she has her license, like, that's so dangerous, like a car, like, she'll run me over when she's mad at me. I think, like, you have to take that leap of faith and do the things that you've got to let them fly.
Yeah, I remember my daughter Katie, when she was a senior in high school, she talked about going to college, and we had read all those books over the years, and I thought, well, I don't want to break her spirit and whatever, but there's no way. And then at the beginning of her senior year, I thought, she can't even get up with the alarm, and she wants to go to college and apply to colleges. By that following January, she had started to mature. And she said to me, Mom, I want to live away at college. You lived away at college, I want to live away at college. And I remember thinking, you know, I just don't think you're ready. I tried to bribe her with everything, you know, maybe we could try to get your license, we'll buy you a nice car. I just wanted to stay at home where I could protect her. And she said, no, I want to live away. And she applied at Westfield State, and I didn't think she was going to get in because I've always had a history of doubting her. And she got into this program that's hard to get into for kids with disabilities. And I remember when I dropped her off at school, I remember thinking, and I had also talked to a lot of parents, and I thought, okay, she's not going to last a week. If she lasts a week, that's great, whatever. And I dropped her off, and I remember just feeling like I had left her to the wolves. I had protected her whole life.
I knew what she was doing her whole life. I had her in a special needs school where she was protected, and all of a sudden she was being integrated into the typical world. And I remember thinking, you know, she's just not going to last. She's not going to last. And it was my sister who said to me, every time in your life that you've doubted your daughter, she has come through. And I remember when she was a little girl and she was making her first communion, I actually said, Katie had all kinds of sensory issues. And I remember saying to the priest, confessing, Father, forgive me, for my daughter's about to spit. She's going to spit out the communion wafer. And I remember saying that to Patty, I said, she's never going to do it. She's not going to do it. We got her all dressed up. We got the dress. She goes up to the thing. She's acting out before she goes up there. She finally gets up there, and she did it. And then she's the only kid walking back like, but it was just so indicative of her whole life, how I had always doubted her. And she made it through school, and she made it through difficult times. And I remember one of Katie's disabilities was that she sometimes will flap when she gets flap her hands. Like a lot of kids on the autism spectrum, she'll flap her hands. And I remember her first week of school, she's in a class, and the professor stops the class and says, why are you doing that? And called her out, and she called me crying, and she's like, and of course I'm like, who is she? Find out where she lives. Hell hath no fury like a special needs mother whose child has been scorned, right? And I'm like, I'm gonna call that school, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna protest. And she's like, Mom, I talked to my advisor, it's okay, we handled it. And she with her advisor, I talked to the professor, but I remember thinking, she's not going to make it, she's not going to make it. And she's making it. And I think that's our tendency with any of our children, is so we go through, and one of the things I've learned too is that we judge them by the way we grew up. You know, what was normal to us. When my daughter didn't get invited to birthday parties, I was like, oh my God, I was invited to every birthday party. Why isn't she being invited? She didn't care half the time, you know. It was me that was worried. Even when girls were mean to her and bullying her, like she'd get over it. I'm like, oh, I'm gonna find out what that was. One girl in town bullied her like 10 years ago. She bullied my daughter 10 years ago. Her father owns a business. I'm like, well, they're not getting mine. I'm going on Yelp, and I'm gonna give them a bad review.
But for those of you that were here a few years ago, so my daughter Jen now is 22. She graduated UMass Amherst and is working at GE. And thank you. She's
Tell her what she does at G.
She actually is a I don't know what her I forget what her official title is, but she does like corporate wellness. She's a personal trainer. Probably one of the first jobs that GE will cut if there's a layoff, but she is gainfully employed. But anyway, she is just loving life and has come so far. And I think one of the things too, and for those of you that have younger children, and I mean, it's when they're younger, like you worry about so much. And for those of you with younger children, I just want to say, like, there were days, particularly at the, when school ended and Jen's issues weren't at school, that was when the structure all fell apart. And I would worry, like, is she going to live through the summer? Like, I mean, that's how bad it was at times. But she was able to pick herself up, and she reached a point in her life where she was able to understand the triggers and understand those things. And that, for her, running was her passion, and that was the thing that was probably most life-saving for her, is to find that solace and to learn more about herself. Like, she's very in tune with herself. Like, she knows when I haven't slept enough, I haven't done this enough. And last weekend she came to, she lives on her own now. She has like 4 roommates. And last weekend she came home, and she was only going to stay one night, and she ended up staying 2 nights. And it was just like an opportunity for her to just chill out. But she recognized that in herself, like, I need this.
Yeah, and having traveled around the country, we have to have the ability to as I mentioned earlier, we're blessed with getting stories from people, and hearing all kinds of wisdom. And one thing I had never heard before, this lovely woman in Dallas, Texas said to us, I don't know if Patty wants to do her accent.
No.
Special needs parents. See, she's better at that. Special needs parents spend so much time looking ahead. That's all we do is what we stay up at night. Will they make it to kindergarten? Will they go to middle school? Will they ever get married? Will they go to college? Will they live on their own? Will they be able to advocate for themselves? The one thing we never do is stop and look back and see the things they did that we never thought they were going to do. And looking back at now with a daughter that's 21, or going to be 21, I now know that that's so true. She's done things that have just completely amazed me and others, and things that I never thought she did. And now I'm finally at the point where I think there's anything, she can do anything she puts her mind to. And I love this little story. When we first started speaking, when we told her that we were going to write a book, we asked for her permission. Katie was young, and she said, "Whoa, yeah, you're going to write a book, we'll get rich, I want a swimming pool." Well, there's no swimming pool. Actually, we just downsized to a house that does have a swimming pool. But Katie said, so I remember she was so excited about the book, and she said, one day she says, "Mom," she said, "would you tell my joke wherever you go?" And I said, "Okay." And she said, "So if I may indulge you and tell Katie's joke," and I've had the opportunity to tell it wherever we go, and then I report back to her when she was younger, "Hey, they like the joke. Hey, they love me in Chicago. They love me in Montana." So I'm going to tell it tonight. She said, "Hey, Mom, what do you get when you sit on a hamburger?" And I said, "What?" And she said, "An Asperger." They love her in Hingham. I want to thank you all so much. That is your 718 habits. I think we're off fractionally. But if any of you have any questions, we'd be happy to answer them. We do not answer any weight or math-related questions. We ask that you phrase your question in the form of a question. Is the bar still open? Okay. That's I know you. If you want to tell your spouse or significant other or partner that this talk went on till 12 o'clock, Patty and I would be happy to sign something. Thank you. Again, please join us on Facebook. Our website is shutupabout.com. Our Facebook page, Shut Up About Your Perfect Kid. We tweet on Twitter. Our handle is shutupabout.com. Tell them about the books and wine glasses.
Oh, and we are selling wine tumblers and books in the back. So thank you all, and God bless.